In Cleveland, coach Sam Ratigliano has seen his team falter badly after an excellent start. Miraculously, however, his Browns are still barely alive for a playoff spot. Their opponent is the New York Jets, a team that boasts great improvement so far in '78. A Coach of the Year contender in Walt Michaels, and a shot at winning either the AFC East outright or a wild card slot. But today the weather will be no help to anyone. It's a brisk 16 degrees in Cleveland, and gusts off Lake Erie are creating a wind chill of minus 10 degrees. Nevertheless, the Jets' hopes ride on the arm of Matt Robinson, who has helped guide his club to 8 wins, the most since 1969. The Browns' slim playoff chances are dependent on the arm of Brian Sipe, who fired 3 scoring passes in Cleveland's previous game against the Seahawks. The gusting winds will make throwing difficult, and a slightly thawing field will make footing treacherous, so this could be a game decided by turnovers. History is on Cleveland's side because in the 3 previous meetings of these 2 clubs, the Jets have never won. There will be some pad popping out there, some of it for the playoffs, some for pride, and some just to keep warm. It may look like the forbidding landscape of the ice planet Pluto, but for the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be Bull Run as they clash in the NFL Game of the Week. The first quarter belied the high-scoring seesaw shootout that this game would eventually become. On their first possession, Sipe drove Cleveland to the Jets' 2-yard line. From the 2, old warhorse Calvin Hill, number 35, took the handoff and leaped into the end zone. The Browns held the 7-0 lead for the remainder of the quarter. In the second period, the Jets' opening drive was stymied when Bruce Harper, number 42, looked like mashed potatoes being covered by a brown wave of gravy. The Jets' subsequent punt went only 34 yards, but was returned 37 yards by Keith Wright, number 89. Two plays later, Sipe went up top to his Mr. Everything, Greg Pruitt, and Cleveland had jumped to a 14-0 lead. A repeat shows that Sipe was enjoying perfect immunity from the New York rush and had a good part of the afternoon to unload the 22-yard scoring strike which hit Pruitt right in the gloves. Having fallen behind by 14, the Jets were now forced to the air, with Robinson hitting Derek Gaffney for 19 yards to set up a 45-yard field goal by Pat Leahy. It wasn't much, but at least New York had cracked the scoreboard. Evidently, no one had noticed the weather because both Robinson and Sipe continued to cleave the crisp air with the football. A repeat of this play shows Sipe once again pocketed as lovingly as a gold watch that is a family heirloom. Although his pass was a mite high, tight end Ozzie Newsome made a fine leaping catch, good for 29 yards. Once the Browns got inside their 10, the Jets refused to yield. All receivers were under wraps, and Sipe couldn't run it in. So a Don Cockroft field goal made it 17-3, Cleveland. From start to finish, the Jets' next drive was practically a one-man show, with Bruce Harper showing his versatility as kick return specialist, runner, and receiver. This run was good for 13 yards, and 6 plays later, New York was threatening at the Cleveland 3. A play fake by Robinson led to a rollout, which led to a Mexican standoff with stymied Browns linebacker Charlie Hall, number 59. Robinson waited for Harper to clear, then fired a strike, which brought the Jets to within a touchdown at 17-10. Sipe wanted it back right away, and his bomb to Pruitt was flicked away at the last minute by number 59, Bob Martin, a linebacker who somehow was running neck and neck with the Cleveland speedster. With protection as good as he was getting, it was no wonder that Sipe wanted to throw. But while the Jets' rush was weak, their secondary was covering like a quilt. Forced to run, Sipe also forced a pass, which was picked off by cornerback Ed Taylor, number 38. All of a sudden, it seemed like an anarchist convention, and everyone was a mad bomber. Browns cornerback Clarence Scott defused this threat intended for the very dangerous Wesley Walker, number 85. A repeat shows that Robinson had plenty of time, a good running start, and plenty of arc. What he ran out of was arm. It probably wouldn't have mattered because Walker had enough defenders around him to start a bridge game. For once, when Cleveland got the ball, the pass protection broke down. But Sipe showed his mettle as a survivor and hit Cleo Miller, number 30, for 12 yards. 2 plays later, the Browns fumbled, and the Jets had a chance to tie before the half. But this was to be the 4th consecutive series to end with a turnover. Safety Tom Darden, number 27, scuttled the Jets' threat, and Cleveland took a 17-10 lead into the locker room. As the teams emerged for the second half, the weather was getting colder, and one had to wonder if the game plans would still call for all-out aerial attacks. The Browns answered that question right away. Pruitt's run was good for 13, and then Miller went right up the middle for 18. Next, Pruitt started a run which was graciously and luckily finished by Miller. Now, how's that for teamwork? The Browns' drive was moving in big chunks on the ground, and this Miller 15-yarder led to a 2nd and goal at the 4. Perhaps mistakenly, Sipe decided to return to the airways, but the Jets were ready with a linebacker blitz. Now with 3rd and goal, the Browns almost had to pass. The protection was there, the ball was there, wide receiver Dave Logan was there, but the field wasn't. It was out of bounds by inches, necessitating another Don Cockcroft field goal, which upped the Cleveland lead to 20-10. The Jets now trailed by 10 and seemed unable to come back, as on their first 2 series of the second half, Robinson threw his 3rd and 4th interceptions. 3 plays after Oliver Davis robbed Robbie, the Browns returned the ball on their 3rd fumble of the game. And for a time, Robinson had the Jets moving goalward. New York managed to hold on to the ball long enough to reach the Cleveland 9, although Robinson almost lost his head. Despite an obvious face mask penalty, Robinson managed a completion to Kevin Long that, combined with the penalty, carried New York deep into Cleveland territory. But from the 9, Robinson again got pressure, managed to escape with his head this time, but then threw like he had lost his mind, right into the hands of middle linebacker Dick Ambrose. Ambrose's interception created quite a turnaround. Instead of New York possibly closing the gap to 3, Cleveland would increase their lead to 17. Ambrose carried his interception out to near midfield, and Cleveland would quickly turn his turnover into a 27-10 lead with a big play, a 33-yard completion from Sipe to Reggie Rucker. From the 2-yard line, Sipe's excellent fake sucked in right linebacker Bob Martin, and the Cleveland quarterback had an easy path to 6 points. Heading into the 4th quarter, Cleveland was clearly king of the mountain, holding a 17-point lead against the Jet offense that seemed bent on self-destruction. But 3 plays into the 4th quarter, the Jets claimed their 3rd fumble recovery, and Robinson immediately and almost exclusively went to the air as the whip-armed kid quarterback would throw 20 passes in the 4th quarter alone. With 6 passes on a 9-play, 64-yard drive, the Jets began a long uphill climb to overcome a 17-point deficit. A 44-yard effort by Bruce Harper carried the Jets to the Browns' 5-yard line. Robinson called 1 run, then his 9th pass. And when it safely arrived in Mickey Schuler's hands, the Cleveland lead was down to 10 points. There was little celebration, for there was still much to be done. Just over 9 minutes remained, and New York trailed by 10. After holding the Browns, the Jets set out to cut the Cleveland lead even further. A 6-play, 75-yard drive consisted of 6 passes, 5 of them complete. The final one from 20 yards out that Harper turned into a touchdown with another good effort. 5'8", 180-pound Bruce Harper was a little man making many big plays. Another look at Harper's score reveals that he turned an innocuous-looking pass into a touchdown by breaking several tackles along the way. The Jets now trailed 27-24 with almost 4 minutes left. And New York's next order of business was an onside kick that they orchestrated perfectly. Pat Leahy bounced the ball just right over a Cleveland up man and into the hands of Ken Schroy. Robinson then put up 6 more passes but connected on only 3. And New York settled for a field goal to tie the game at 27 with 2 minutes, 36 seconds left. 156 seconds that would produce 2 more touchdowns and 150 yards of total offense. On the wildest play of a wild game, Darnell Powell recovered Keith Wright's fumble in midair and returned it to the Cleveland 8-yard line. The Jets would quickly take advantage and score their 24th point of the fourth quarter, turning a 17-point deficit into a 7-point lead in just 8 minutes. But first, another look at an amazing turn of events. On the kickoff, Wright was beginning to cut back across the field when Tim Moresco stripped the ball away, and it flew directly to Powell, who returned 23 yards in the other direction. A shoestring tackle by Larry Collins momentarily saved the Browns, for Powell had a certain 6 points otherwise, and Collins' tackle very nearly turned out to be a big play. It took New York 3 cracks from the 8, and as we shall soon see, Kevin Long's touchdown almost didn't happen. The Jets now led 34-27 with 1:15 to go. And Long's 1-yard run is worthy of a second look. The Jets could very easily have lost the ball as Robinson made a, shall we say, awkward handoff. The Jets' incredible comeback was almost complete. They now led by 7 with 76 seconds left, and Cleveland 73 yards away from a tie. But suddenly, Sipe was hot again as he hit on 5 of 6 passes, the biggest a 26-yarder to Greg Pruitt, that carried to the New York 18 with 14 seconds to go. It was to be the first of several big plays by Pruitt, as it set up the tying touchdown on a Sipe pass to Calvin Hill, and the game took yet another incredible twist. Browns had staged a comeback every bit as dramatic as the Jets. After blowing a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter, it is extremely difficult to rev up again. The Jets were filled with comeback adrenaline. The Browns almost visibly went limp, yet somehow Cleveland fought back. Sipe's pass to Hill was perfect, dropped just over John Hennessy while giving Hill room to catch it inbounds, and it was overtime time. Hill has personally completed quite a comeback himself. The former Cowboy and Redskin had retired and was not in the Browns uniform until mid-season. Yet he had scored his 7th touchdown of the year with another critical catch for Cleveland. This, of course, was his biggest so far, for it tied the game at 34 and sent it into overtime. A fitting conclusion to this amazing game. The Browns won the crucial coin toss, and as so often happens in a moment of high anxiety, a star comes to the fore and takes the situation in hand. In this instance, the man of the moment was Greg Pruitt, who in the overtime period quite simply was the Browns' offense. To his 31-yard kickoff return to midfield, Pruitt added runs of 5, 13, and 26 yards on consecutive carries, and moved Cleveland into winning field goal range. Pruitt's 26-yard run set up Don Cockcroft with a 22-yard field goal that, if good, would certainly be the final comeback in a game full of comebacks and bring victory to Cleveland. Cleveland's overtime victory knocked the Jets out of any chance for a postseason game. Cleveland, despite its win, is also out of the playoffs. But the playoffs were not really the question today, as both teams actually only had an outside chance anyway. The Jets-Browns game was just plain exciting, with almost 900 yards of offense. Other games clearly had more strategic import, but New York versus Cleveland was just as clearly the best game of the week. Final score, Cleveland 37, New York 34.